Hey, it's Craig Syracusa, and welcome to another episode of Walk in Faith, the show where we go beyond the image and we discover who our guests really are. You might know them from TV, the big screen, or even the world of sports, but do we really know who they are as a person? Do we know what motivates them? Do we know what inspires them? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Today I had the opportunity to sit down with child star Kirk Cameron. You might know him from Growing Pains, but did you know that he was an evangelist? And today we're going to discuss the division in our country. Stay tuned for Walk in Faith.
Well, I want to thank you. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for you in my childhood, I wouldn't have been cool. You taught me how to, you taught me how to drink Coke out of a can, sit on my parents' countertop, and I try to move into my car. Those are like all your episodes.
Well, I'm glad I could help with those things. Yeah.
But
so now I'm raising
now
6 kids of my own, and so I've got little Mike Severs at my own house, and so now I'm getting, it's payback time now.
I mean, now you're influencing me through the gospel. I mean, but now you aren't always Christian, right? You were an atheist for a while, right?
Yeah, I would have called myself an atheist as a kid. So I didn't grow up going to church, and it wasn't until I was about 18 years old that somebody took me to church. Their family went, and I heard a message from the minister, and I started asking lots of questions and started going to another church. Someone gave me a Bible. I started asking more questions and reading, and that's when I became interested. And I started really exploring what it meant to have faith in God and what it meant to be a Christian.
What was your initial response when you went to church?
Fish out of water. If these people only knew that I don't believe any of this, they probably would tell me to leave. But that's not how how I was treated. In fact, they were great, and people were answering my questions. I didn't think there were answers to my questions. That's why I thought, like, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. But they did give me good answers to my questions, and in fact, started asking me some questions that I couldn't answer. And one thing led to another, and eventually came to a place of realizing that I think it actually takes more faith to believe all this happened without God and everything else that I know than it does to believe that there was a loving, powerful creator who put you and me here to have this conversation right now.
No, I believe that. I heard that actually. That was on YouTube. You said that in one
Oh,
of your
did I?
sermons. Yeah.
Okay.
You spoke about that as well. But now, how did you know? Like, especially in Hollywood, right? There's so many religions. I mean, every month there's a new religion that pops up. How did you know Christianity was right for you, though?
That's a great question. In fact, that's what I was asking God. How do I know the right religion? How do I know that the Bible is your word? And I could answer all those questions, and we could go down a lot of different roads here and talk about history or prophecy or the Bible or other religions. But at the end of the day, my pastor said to me years later, he said, when I was a fully devoted follower of Christ, he said, now remember, when people ask you how you found God, I want you to think about this. You didn't find God. He wasn't lost. You were, and he found you. And really, at the end of the day, that's so true. I now don't try to act as though Christianity and the Bible needs me to defend it. Like a lion, you kind of let it out of its cage and it will defend itself. And the more I study history, the more I study all different disciplines, the more I see that my faith in Christ and his word has been well placed.
Was there a sign, though? Like, for instance, let's just say there's a kid out there that's struggling with his faith, right? And then there's times where we doubt our faith, right? I mean, we're human, right? There's got to be time. I know for me, there is time. What would you say to someone? How do you, like, was there a sign that God showed you that, to say, like, this is right, this is what you should be doing, or following? What would you say to a kid that's struggling with that?
You know, I think that I made a whole documentary, Why Does God Let Bad Things Happen to Good People? And when tragedy strikes and suffering is in view, sometimes we can ask these kind of questions and it causes us to stumble into doubt. But at the end of the day, I can look back to the cross and I can say, now what about that? Do you think that wasn't an area where people began to doubt that this really was the Messiah? I mean, here he is, the most innocent person on earth being crucified, and yet it was the very thing that God used to bring salvation to the world. So God has things going on behind the difficult things that we can't see, that I've learned to trust that he's got a good result. And so I I try to do that whenever there's a time where things don't seem to make sense. If I can't trace his hand, rather, I can always trust his heart. And I know that because he's my father.
And now, okay, so now you're a Christian. You're working on Growing Pains.
Yeah.
Were you able to share your experience with Growing Pains, or did you have to have like a secular Kirk and then there was the Christian Kirk? Were you able to integrate that, or what did you do when you were on set?
Yeah, well, you know, when I first started working on Growing Pains, I wasn't a Christian at that time. It wasn't until 3 or 4 years later, when I was an adult, that I began to follow Christ. And at times there were issues that would come up, and there would be some friction between me and the producers. But at the end of the day, I wanted to be a part of projects that I knew I could put my whole heart into, that I was passionate about, and things like we're gonna be talking about today. Things that were gonna be hopeful, helpful. Movies like Fireproof, and some of the other projects I've had a chance to be a part of. And at the end of the day, I want to live my life and design my career for an audience of one, and that's God. People pleasing usually doesn't bring great results, and as an actor, that's what you kind of make your living doing, is pleasing the audience. But at the end of the day, as a Christian, I want my life to be one that says thank you to the God that gave me my life and career.
We'll be right back with more Walk in Faith. So, and do you think, because we've interviewed a lot of celebrities and stuff like that in Hollywood, there's a difficulty identifying with faith. Like a lot of them consider themselves spiritual; they won't really identify with a faith. Do you think that Hollywood accepts Christians, or will it affect their career in a positive and negative way if a celebrity or a A-list celebrity comes out and says, I'm Catholic or I'm Christian? Does it have an effect or a direct effect on their career?
I think it can sometimes, and I think there's probably different seasons where that would be more prominent than others. But when you look at the entertainment industry right now and you see movies that have come out, probably in particular since The Passion of the Christ came out, you now see so many more faith-based movies being made in Hollywood because there's an audience for it. And whenever people can make money off of a particular genre, you'll see more and more people leaning into that. So it's not so much now as I think it has been in the past, but that could change again. And so I think it's good. We'll see more faith-based movies. With more of them. Some of them will be good, some of them will be bad, but my hope is that we can continue making projects that are really going to give people a sense of, I guess it will encourage them, give them hope, and give them an idea of what kind of life they want to live.
One thing I watched the other day, it was an old interview when you were on The View, and it was actually, I got offended by the way they introduced you, because they said, that you took the most shocking path a teen star could take. Instead of drugs or alcohol or I think jail, you became a Christian. And to me, it struck it was such a negative tone. It was like, how could you put Christianity and drugs or jail in the same sentence? I was like, and you handled it well. You didn't you took the high road, and it made me think. I
came out and gave Joy Behar a Mike Seaver pillowcase.
You did. But it just made me think that Christianity is thought about in that same sort of tone, you should have maybe, went down a different path, but instead you became a Christian, which is a positive. And why does society, why does society view Christianity in sort of the same realm that it's?
I don't really know, but it's true. I am an anomaly. I'm kind of the Hollywood prodigal, because normally the story of the teen actor goes a particular way, and you assume that, well, yeah, this is how these stories usually go, unfortunately. And it went different for me. So instead of going down that road, I was fortunate. Somebody led me down a better road. And so I ended up meeting my wife on the show. I married Mike Seaver's girlfriend. We have 6 kids now, and I'm able to be talking with you. I'm working on great projects, and I'm so thankful. So this is, no matter what roles being a Christian may or may not have cost me, at the end of the day, I think I got the better end of the deal.
I agree. And now you have this amazing event coming up on Tuesday, right?
Yep, it's called Revive Us too. I'm real excited about it. I'm calling it a national family meeting for the family of faith. 1 year ago at Revive Us, over 150,000 believers gathered in theaters across America for a national family meeting. We prayed, we worshiped, we put our faith into action, and something remarkable happened. But we didn't cross the finish line. we crossed the starting line. Today, some say that we've become more divided as a country than ever. Divided over race, politics, religion. Even our families are divided, and they say it's only getting worse. But you and I know something they don't. An awakening has begun. There's been a shift in our culture. A fresh momentum is building. God is unleashing something that is uniting heaven and earth. And what God joins together, nothing can separate. Join me and Dr. Ben Carson, Johnny Erickson Tata, Ravi Zacharias, Alex and Stephen Kendrick, producers of the movies Fireproof and War Room. Special artists and musical guests Zach Williams and Christian Cuevas as we gather on one night, live in theaters across the country to pray and worship together and discover how we can bring hope and healing to our divided nation. It's time for a better and higher perspective. Live from the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., don't miss this one-night national family meeting of hope, courage, and unity. Revive Us Too. Get your tickets today. You know, we're so divided in our country today. We're divided over just about everything: race, religion, politics. You turn on the news, there's some scandal, something happening that's getting people anxious and divided. And yet I know that there are millions of people in this country who really love God with all of their heart, who want to love their wife and their husband and their kids and reach out to their neighbors no matter how different they are. And so I'm putting together an event where I can amplify that and call the whole family of faith together in movie theaters across the country this Tuesday. And we're going to broadcast from the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. with some of my friends like Dr. Ben Carson and Ravi Zacharias, filmmakers Alex and Stephen Kendrick from War Room and Fireproof, Johnny Erickson Tata, and so many other people who give me hope and inspire me and encourage me, so that as the church, as the family of faith, we can lead the way in bringing hope and healing to a divided nation.
And I love the word you used, awakening. You know,
Yeah,
I loved it.
I believe that there is an awakening. I think there has been a shift in our culture, and I can see it when I travel around the country. There's a fresh momentum that's building. Like I just said, there are people out there who are tired of the narrative negative that produces these attitudes of hostility and division and fear, and they want to lean into their faith because they know there's a higher perspective, a better perspective on all of this. And so we're going to sing together, pray together, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and talk about a strategy that will bring true and lasting unity to people in America.
And you touched on something. You said, you know, people want to lean on their faith. Do you think, because, you know, there is this division in society and in the world, do you think that a lot of people, you know, sort of come back to their faith? But are they deep rooted in their faith, or are they just here for the storm, and then, you know, when society, you know, goes back to the way it was, they're going to sort of just, we're not going to see them again until Christmas and Easter? Like, how do we keep them connected? Are they just connected because of fear? Like, how do we just engage them and then keep them there?
Yeah, that's such a good question. How do we take what we know in our head and have it move from our head to our heart, and then ignite and have our faith be personal and passionate to work together and change the world? That's what we're going to be talking about at Revive Us. And that's why I invite some of my most brilliant friends and faithful friends to talk about how we can do that specifically in the area of race, religion, these things that divide us, politics, money. There's so many issues that we talk about around the dinner table and that my kids ask me about. We're going to talk about at Revive Us Too, real solutions to these things.
Are you also going to focus on some of the millennials? Because I know a lot of millennials have a difficulty identifying with faith, right? They consider themselves to be spiritual. Are you going to focus on them during this conference at all, or during this meeting?
Love for everybody to come. There's something for everybody here. We've got people who are young and old. We've got people across, again, political aisles and different racial backgrounds, different denominational backgrounds. And so I think there'll be something there for everybody.
Do you see, I mean, do you have an idea or a way that we can sort of, because I just want to touch on the millennials for a second. They love instant gratification, right? They're so used to the social media, like, and God, we know, sometimes it takes time for God to show himself or for God's plan to sort of unfold. How could we get them attracted to the church? How do we bring the word to them, knowing that it could take years to develop this sort of this relationship that we have with God? How do we get them attracted to the church?
That's a good question. I'm not so interested in trying to attract people to the church, rather than giving them the message of hope and of life. I'll tell you what attracted me to God, and that is realizing that one day I have to die, and I'm going to stand before the one that gave me life. So at the end of the day, I think if people are thoughtful people, they can put two and two together and realize that when God is kind and gracious and has given us the opportunity to turn to Him, that it makes sense to do that. And so I like to share that message, but I'm thinking that God has His own ways of attracting people through the lives of those who love Him. So I don't think we need to spend hours and hours and hours trying to track down one demographic. As families and as parents, we can raise our kids and we can share the message and we can do what we can. At the end of the day, I think God and Himself will draw people to Him.
And now, is this going to be an annual event?
I think so. After the very first one, people loved it so much they were saying, can we do this every year?
That's great.
And so this is Revive Us 2. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a Revive Us 3.
And do you see it where it's something you travel to different states or different communities, or do you see it being in Washington every year?
Well, last year we were in Chicago. This year we're in Washington, D.C. So we'll see what happens for
beautiful
for
church
number 3.
in Chicago. It was a beautiful space.
Yeah, it was a beautiful old church. And this time we'll be at the Museum of the Bible, and that's an incredible place. It's not even open yet, so we really haven't seen all of it, but that'll be revealed a little bit at Revive Us 2, and then the museum opens in November.
We'll be right back with more Walk in Faith. How do we know the gifts? Like, let me ask you directly. So the gift that you have, right, whatever that gift is, let's say as an actor, how do we know the gifts that we have are from God? Like, how do we distinguish or determine if it's a gift from God? And is it our job to use that gift to evangelize in that platform, or is it more for just, self-motivation and
That's a really good question. So the way that I look at it is I understand that God gives gifts to people, particular gifts for the building up of the church and for the work of the ministry. But I think what you're talking about is talents. If you have an ability to sing, or you have an ability or a gift to be able to go out and make movies, or whatever it is that you love to do. Maybe you're a lawyer, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a farmer, maybe you're a politician, whatever. I think that the whole direction of my life ought to be one that says, thank you to God, and how can I serve you as my neighbor, right? Those are the 2 big commandments: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so I want my whole life to be moving in that direction. So I would say none of this should be just about me. That's the whole point, is this should be about others. What did Jesus say? He said, I didn't come to be served, but to serve. Not my will, but your will be done. So at the end of the day, I think that we ought to gather up all the gifts and talents and resources that we have and use them to honor God and bless other people.
What would you define as sin? What does a sin mean to you?
I don't know. How would you define it?
Me, if anything that's self-serving or goes against sort of whatever I feel inside, if I feel like I'm doing something wrong, but I know it goes against and it's self-serving, then I consider that a sin. If I'm doing it solely for myself without thinking of the other person.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then God's Word itself gives us some real clarity on those things and what they are. So yeah, I would agree with you.
And now, how do you base your success, or the success of the event? How did you base the success off of last year's?
Well, 150 to 160,000 people attended Revive Us, and we got flooded with emails and notes from people who said how much they loved it, how encouraged they were from Revive Us. And that's why we're doing Revive Us 2.
And now, tell us how we can watch this. Is this something where we have to go to a movie theater? Is this something we can stream on our phones?
No, you can't stream it on your phone. You need to go to a movie theater, and it's this Tuesday, October 24th. You can get your tickets at reviveus.com. Maybe you have a website where you'll have links as well, but I know at reviveus.com you can get tickets. And if you missed the live evening, there will be an encore on November 1st. So you'll be able to see it then as well. But you got to go to a theater.
That's great. I just want one last question is, why do you do this? I want the real answer, not the secular view answer. Like, this is a dedication. I mean, you're sacrificing everything. Like, why do you do this? What drives you? What motivates you to do this?
Well, I do this a couple of reasons. One, I love it. I love talking with people. I love learning. I love sharing the things that I'm learning with others, particularly when it has to do with the health of our families, our faith, and our country. Because I have kids. And I want this country to be a place where our kids can continue to be free and continue to love God. And so I want to do my part to make it as healthy and protected as possible.
Well, I can definitely say you are. I really appreciate this opportunity to sit with you, and I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch it on Tuesday. So
thanks.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
God bless you too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Always remember, we have the ability to inspire and evangelize through our words and actions. Till next time, thanks for walking with us.